And obviously, prototypes are known for their high levels of downforce, huge amounts of grip. But with the Norma and the Ligier, at slow speeds, these cars can be very, very tricky, especially accelerating out of slow corners like chicanes and stuff like that. They can be very, very tricky. Indeed, I remember trying to pre-qualify for the Le Mans Virtual Cup, and at Monza, I put the foot down out of the chicanes, and it was just huge amounts of wheel spin, very, very tricky indeed. So it's not an easy car to drive, a little bit deceiving in terms of how it looks and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, as you say, lots of different downforce packages as well to pick from. So it'd be interesting to see if the drivers go more for a low downforce package and go for straight line speed, or whether they want to maximize their pace on the twisty bits, of which there are many at the Nordschleife.
Absolutely. By the way, just apologies if you had a couple of technical issues coming through from our end. Hopefully that's all fixed now as we'll get ourselves ready. The race will begin in roughly, I think it's sort of 7-8 minutes time before we go racing. 30 cars to take on the Nordschleife. It's a little bit difficult when it comes to the start of the grid. Of course, we're just running the Nordschleife, not running on the Grand Prix Loop, which does mean the start of the race can get a little bit difficult as we run into, of course, the freshly renamed Sabine Schmidt's corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the drivers don't have time to really capitalise on a good start. They're going to be straight into the first corner. There's no big braking zone, no big hairpin to send one down the inside. It's very narrow, very tight. So the drivers are going to go immediately from nothing to full intensity and out onto the circuit. So I think the first few corners will, of course, be crucial. But yeah, it's always exciting at the Nordschleife. It just has something very special about it.
Absolutely. Well, tomorrow is a big day for any fan of rFactor 2. There's a bit of content coming your way. Well, for someone like me who is a massive British touring car fan, what a bit of content to approach. Of course, Brands Hatch joining Donington Park and a couple of the British touring cars in the form of the Infiniti Q50 and the Toyota Corolla GR as well for the British Touring Car Championship, as well as a sneaky little edition of Laguna Seca. Great bits of content, and it's, especially with the circuits on that part, so usable in so many different styles of racing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, fans of the British touring cars worldwide, not just in the UK, will be very, very excited indeed, and have been waiting for this kind of content for a long time. And I can tell you, I've actually driven the cars myself a little bit. They are fantastic to drive. They're going to be a lot of fun. Not the easiest things in the world, but yeah, and some great circuits to go along with it. I mean, who doesn't love Donington Park? Laguna Seca as well, a bit of a surprise maybe for some, but yeah, I think plenty for rFactor 2 fans to get excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm a bit of an rFactor fan, as well as plenty of quality of life changes. Kind of said that before. Yep, racing lines joining for anyone who's fairly new to sim racing, who wants to use it to sort of press their way into the sim racing world and understand exactly what it's like as a simulator. Sometimes you do need to have those things to make it more approachable. For me, the big thing that's being changed, that sound engine. And they put out a video on Twitter and on various social medias earlier in the week of the obvious change between the old sound model and the new sound model, and man, it sounds so good.
Yeah, absolutely. There are many things that rFactor 2 have gotten right over the years, but sound has maybe been something that some people haven't been too happy with. It struggles a little bit against others, but honestly, guys, this is going to be very exciting indeed. And I think it really does help bring the sim to life. People are going to enjoy hot lapping that little bit more. You've got all the sensations going on. Yeah, I cannot wait for it. It's one of many exciting things happening with rFactor 2 at the moment.
It's the odd buzz that you get from shifting down in various cars. It's that detail that's just added. The car, though, that we are racing today, I think we should probably take a little bit of a look at it. It is a tricky beast, of course. The Ligier JS P320, which is a bit of a mouthful. P3, obviously, because it is a P3 car, and then 20 because it was made in 2020. So that actually does make sense.
Yeah.
I was thinking it had 320 brake horsepower. That is not the case. 18 inches of magnesium rims, very, very light, obviously to keep the centre of mass towards the middle of the car. Various aero configurations, the sprint high, the sprint low, and of course the Le Mans aero package. Not a particularly big car. It's roughly the same kind of size as your regular car, you know, your 3 Series and such, just not quite as high. And a 5.6 litre naturally aspirated 460 brake horsepower V8 powered to the wheels with a 6-speed gearbox. Not a particularly heavy car as well, 950 kilos. You can get some sick air when you're driving around here around the flanks garden. Like 100 litres, we'll talk about this more as to how this affects this event a bit later on, and 290 kilometres an hour. That is limited, of course, by the gearing that they have. Not quite able to reach that top speed that we'll see on the Duttinger Hoa. All available for you to go and purchase on the Steam store. And to be fair, someone who kind of enjoys my prototype racing, it's certainly one that I'd think of picking up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the first P3 car, of course, to come to rFactor 2. We've also got the Norma in there as well, which was used mainly in the Le Mans Virtual Cup. But yeah, it's an exciting car, as we've been talking about. The thing that stands out for me is that very lazy 5.6 litre engine, because it's a big lump of a thing. It doesn't produce as much power as you might think from that size of engine, but actually it's so torquey, and when you put your foot down out of the slow corners, as I was saying earlier, you definitely feel the power being there. So it is an intense driving experience, not an easy one, despite it almost seeming like the feeder series into the likes of prototypes like LMP1s and LMP2s and stuff like that.
I kind of compared the LMP3s to something like a GT4 car, where comparatively a GT4 to a GT3 car, I actually think that for some parts, GT4 cars can actually be a little bit trickier to drive. GT3, you've got all the aids and stuff and assists to kind of guide you through it. Kind of similar to an LMP3 versus an LMP2. I genuinely, hand on heart, I would find an LMP3 car a little bit more tricky, a little bit more dicey. It dances more on the corner exit. Yes, the Parrot's got less power, but that torque, you're absolutely right. Going around some of the corners around here, particularly on the exit of the likes of the carousel, and when you're going through some of that high-speed section, YouTube corner, I mean, how many cars we've seen loop it around there? It's very, very easy to make some mistakes. There's only one way, though, to find out exactly how this is going to go, because the race isn't too far away, John. It's going to be exciting.
Not at all. Yeah, absolutely. 45 minutes of action, of course, with Le Mans, Nordschleife, we're not at Le Mans. That it means not that many laps, but it's still going to be a lot of racing and so many corners for the drivers to learn. They are now gridding up, I believe. We can see Ben Scully in there. Looks like we might be underway.
We certainly are. No Donat Prodan, who was, oh no, he is there in the Volante car on the inside and the run down towards the Sabine Schmidt's curve. A little bit of side-by-side contact between 4th and 5th place, and already sent off into the barrier. 45 minutes on the clock, and half the grid had to start, obviously, round the corner. Such a short, I don't know if you can call it a start-finish straight, such a short little run before we get down into that first corner. It is Ben Scullion, who's been sent down the road down to 8th position after starting 3rd.
Yeah, that was an ambitious move into turn 1. It seems like one of the drivers locked up. Not quite sure who it was, but Scullion definitely paid the price down to 8th. But there is plenty of time for him to make it up. The tricky thing, of course, now, as we see, almost a spin for the car in front there. Not quite sure who that was either. But we are now heading down to one of the faster sections of circuit. It's going to be tricky now for Ben to make up that ground as we approach the twistier sections later on.
It should still be Massar, Ben Amar leading the way. Actually, no, it's not. It's Thomas Vack. He's managed to work his way into the race lead at the moment, ahead of Donat Prodan, Liam Rance, Zitiello as well in 4th position. I think it might have been Liam Rance. Actually, I don't know if it was, because it didn't look like a satellite racing car, which is what Liam Rance drives. Zitiello then, maybe possibly the culprit that sent Scullion down the road. As much as that does look like a satellite, it certainly isn't one, the red and blue that we typically associate with the car. That is a big crash from Sebastian Ray, someone who's more akin to racing elsewhere in sim racing, jumping onto rFactor 2. That's a big crash on that run down towards Schwedenkreuz.
Yeah, fast place, and if you go off there, there's nowhere for the car to rebound off to. You're going to come back into the middle of the track, and we did see a little bit of contact as he rejoined there, so we're not quite sure who that was that paid the price there. Looks like the front two have kind of made a little bit of a break for it already, as that looks like the car that's been involved, and that is a lot of damage, to say the least. But yeah, the front two definitely making a break for it. They've got just over a second gap back to Liam Rance in 3rd. I wonder if we'll see Vac and Prodan kind of work together now to build a gap.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. There is someone else off the road. That is not Sebastian Ray. More issues as well. When you lose a rear wing in a car like this, especially when you typically lose a rear wing, you can have some suspension damage as well. It's chaos on chaos on chaos. The race leader there just coming through shot. That is Thomas Vac. The car that's directly behind him, Donat Prodan, going on the attack in that Volante.
Yeah, absolutely, looking racy indeed. And sticking with the leaders, a bit of a lock-up. Braking is one thing we did not talk about with this car, and from my experience, it's very, very tricky indeed to keep it straight in the braking zones. If you're running, you know, a rearward brake bias and you're really pushing on the pedal, you will find the car is very unstable at times. Almost caught out our second place driver there, but he managed to hold on okay and stay within the slipstream.
Wow, well, you're going to see the slipstream in full effect here. We'll leave Exmuller, we'll start this just enormous climb, climbing and climbing and climbing. I think it's for about 3.5, 4 kilometers that you're rising all the way up. Of course, you come through the Lauder curve into Bergwerk here, and you were saying this when we were talking about this before, probably the most important corner on the entire track, because you're flat from this point, you're going up a massively steep climb. You've got to get that late apex just right.
Absolutely, it's off camber, it's uphill, it's a really tricky corner, but if you get it right, you get the run all the way down here, and we can see the effect of that as Ben Scullion did manage to get a good exit. He's closed right up on the 6th place car, that's Tortella, and he's going to make a move on the right. We're coming near to commitment corner now. This right-hander isn't really a corner, but this next left certainly is. We're expecting these drivers to be pretty much flat out through here, and you can see there, Ben Scullion fully committed, makes the move stick, and maintains 6th position.
Oh, well, no, Donat Prodan has gone off as they roll up and over towards the steel Strecker. That was coming through Spiegel Curve, which is a flat-out corner. Not normally that tricky. I don't know exactly how he would have dropped it, but Liam Rance either way has been promoted up into 2nd position in his satellite car. Tomasz Vak has to look backwards once again, because that gap, it was half a second to Donat Prodan. I don't know why it's switched, but either way, Liam Rance is closing right in once again. There's Carl Newis down in 12th position. He's got Bavolo directly behind him.
Yeah, it was looking so good for the two of those guys, and now suddenly Liam Rance is looking like in a menacing position, 6/10 off the lead, so not quite sure what happened there. Got to watch out for Zitiello as well, only a second back, bit of a gap back to Fabian Bala in 4th. Coming up now to one of the most enjoyable sections of track, from my perspective anyway as a driver. I really enjoy this section. It's all about the flow, bouncing from corner to corner, and Carl Newis right on the back of P11, which I believe is K. Heading now through the right-hander. They're going to use a little bit of curb on the inside. Newis running a tiny bit wide there, but as you can see, looking for any kind of gap he can. He's got to watch his rear end, though, because he's got Bavolo just behind him.
Yeah, this is running back through that section, so through the likes of Vipperman, then back down the hill. You've got to know which corner, which curb to attack here. That's kind of the critical thing. Run through Brunchen, YouTube corner. This is where it's quite tricky on the rear end. You might see a couple, particularly late on in the race, when obviously with it being quite a torquey car, you do burn out the rear tyres a fair amount when you're constantly putting the power down. And I think that might just cause some problems. Brunchen's one of those tricky corners, about to get some of that sick air that I was talking about, 950 kilos. It gets launched going over there at Flansgard.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something the drivers actually do need to think about. They may need to lift just to make sure they don't get too much air, because we can see some big accidents here at rFactor 2 around here, especially in this car. We saw it in the Le Mans Virtual Cup as well, especially in preparation. So the drivers will have to take that into account. It's risk versus reward, but seems to be all okay at the moment. Very spectacular to watch.
I've been to the Nordschleife. I think we both have at some points. And when I was there back in 2018, there was I've told the story a few times, a Ford GT40, an amazing piece of machinery that took that jump a little bit too literally and went left.
Oh dear.
It's a double apex right-hander straight after that jump. It was not pretty. So sent straight into the barrier, and I'm sure that wouldn't have been a great one. But yes, absolutely. As we head onto the Duttinger Hoa for the first time, Newis is trying to get past K for 11th position. Our leader, Tomasz Vak, way clear in the distance, so about second clear, so he's not having to worry backwards. This is Scullion, who's got Fabian Bala on the rear end, rolling into the final section of the racetrack at Tiergarten.
Yeah, we had our first chance there to check on the aero packages and see that everyone was running similar things. And it looks like everyone's got a similar pace up the straight. Newis struggling a little bit. Of course, the straight is so long that you can actually use the slipstream to get past somebody and then get repassed on the same straight. It's crazy. But Newis very committed there into the final section. Holds on to P11 and will live to fight another day.
You've got to be careful as well when it comes to looking out, because if you pull out the slipstream too early, the issue is if you're too close going through Galgenkopf, the corner onto the long straight of the Duttinger Hoa, if you're too close, you're not really working your way into that slipstream. So as soon as you pull out, you're only doing maybe 1, 2, 3K faster, which as soon as you pull out, you're in the same air then that's being dished out from just standard anyway. You don't then have anything to work into, and so you just stall out, and you're basically just going to stay side by side all the way up towards Tiergarten.
I totally agree. I mean, the perfect position to be is about 8/10 back, I'd say, going onto the straight. As long as you can just get that slipstream, you have a big run at it, essentially. You can get past, and if you've got another car in front of them, you're looking good, because then you can just keep on going along the train. But with the Nordschleife, it's a lot about mind games as well, because it's not just as easy as making the move when you can. You've got to almost think ahead. Sometimes it's better to be behind than in front, which isn't the case on every circuit. But with that big straight, the Nordschleife, look at that. Sorry, just got distracted.
Ooh.
Otero touching the grass as we went over the crest there. Very, very close to losing the back end on turn-in, but did well to keep it all together. I'm sure that would have been a little bit of a heart-stopping moment there.
Well, I will say, Newis also had a bit of a moment. Like I said, just going over the crest, didn't touch the grass, but you could kind of see the body language of the car. It's losing the rear end a little bit, a bit of a lock-up as well. A couple of cars ahead. That might be Maymo, who sat in 9th place at the moment. Very easy to lock up. Obviously, as you come through Schwedenkreuz, once you release the turn, obviously the weight will swing back over, and might swing back over a little bit too far just as you're tapping onto the brakes. Very easy to pull that front right, or even the front left if you're braking too early coming around Schwedenkreuz. Such a fast corner up here towards Ardenau Forst. Don't want to touch the curbs around here. They are quite big.
Absolutely, and obviously it depends on what car you're in, but most of the time, as you say, you want to just get as close to the curb as possible without riding them, get a good exit. By the way, lead battle, 1.3 seconds between the two of them. Thomas Vack as well. I'm not that surprised he's leading, because out of all of the competitors in today's race, as we see another accident, that's the same driver that was struggling earlier on in the lap, unfortunately, but we cut back to our leader, who's having a slightly better go of it at the moment. Vack was actually, of all the drivers in this race, I believe he finished the highest in the Le Mans Virtual Cup, because he finished 10th position in that race, and that was obviously an incredibly competitive field, as is this. The strength and depth in rFactor 2 these days is as good as it has ever been. But yeah, he's definitely commanding this race and using the experience from last season to good effect.
I don't have the full memory as to where Thomas Vack is in the terms of esports teams. Of course, for anyone, obviously this is using the competition system, rank racing in a sense. So it's not necessarily applicable, as John Cook is out of the race. I think our first retirement from it. It's not totally applicable, because you kind of just do this stuff by yourself. But either way, I'm pretty sure Thomas Vack was a part of the HM engineering team, of course, Harris Mohammed's squad. I think he departed it, or when the team kind of split. Newis being squeezed off the road a little bit by Otero as they head towards the Lauda curve and then up through Bergwerk. I don't think Newis will be particularly pleased with that. The grass around here, you can't get squeezed around here. You just get pulled straight off into the barriers.
I do have to say, though, he looks like he's enjoying this one, and I think I would be in this kind of battle. I mean, it's intense, of course, and I'm sure he will be feeling that intensity, but I think he's in a good position to have fun here. It's always good when you've got cars around you, and it looks like they're having a close battle. Not much space there given by Louis Otero, but who can blame him? If you can try and defend on this track, you really can hold off for a while. Although, Carl Newis has got the run. He's going to take the inside line through the right-hander now, coming up to possibly the fastest corner on the track that's properly a corner. And we see that the back end's gone for Newis. Almost holds it, and it's a giant crash with 3 different cars. That was such a shame, Lewis, because Carl almost saved that, and that might have been the perfect save, but it wasn't quite to be.
Watch Bavolo here. Watch Bavolo. That's the lead car, and that is obviously got a bit of issue on the brakes. Same with Newis, but there's no rear wing on Bavolo's car. That was the 3rd car that jumped into that incident as well. Newis pulling over essentially to one side. Nunez is coming through. That is Kay, who I think you can kind of tell the rear wing on that car looks hilariously big in comparison. Not quite as big as the one on this, i.e. it's just not there. It's a big bit of air. I'm surprised he's not spun, actually.
I was going to say, he's doing a great job, actually, holding on, and just as I say that, why did I curse
It's not
Mario
the commentator's
Bavolo?
curse. It's not the commentator's curse.
Carl Newis definitely looks damaged as well. It'll be suspension, and I think he's going to pull over and retire. But I was just saying how much fun Carl was having, and he definitely had a bit of fun with the oversteer for about half a second, not when the contact was made. And it was such a shame as well for the car 3rd in that queue, because there was nowhere to go.
Yeah, that is the commentator's curse right there.
Sorry, guys.
I've said before, I don't believe in the commentator's curse. I only believe in bad driving, but that was a bit rough.
Lead gap's looking a bit closer, Lewis, as well. Looks like Rance has got within the second. I mean, he's been sitting around there, but it did get up to about 1.4, 1.5. I mean, with the Nordschleife, it can to and fro throughout the course of a lap. But, yeah, Liam's looking almost within slipstream range, I would say, and they're not that far away from the Duttinger hole. So, can he mount a lead challenge?
So if we, for anyone who knows about racing around here, is you don't divide the circuit up into 3 sectors because it's way too long. But if we do divide it up into 3 sectors, just nice equal thirds, the first and second sector aren't, this is relative, the first and second sector aren't particularly difficult to keep up with the car ahead because you've got a lot of straights, you can say, like the run all the way around. Oh, there is Bavolo still. He's still trying to keep going, so good effort. Yeah, the first sector where you've got that run down towards Fadenkreuz and Arenberg. Then you've got the second sector as a little bit off the road there in 20th position, trying to basically just launch it and try and turn the car into a bit of a plane. As more issues as well. Filetto getting past Wirth. I'll eventually get to my point. The third sector is where, as a driver, you can make the gap. As you run through all those sections, there's not as much straight line speed bits where you can get pulled along by the slipstream.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can really just, if you're committed and you can hold on to things, it's obviously a very difficult section of the track as well. But if you can get it right, you can just begin to claw on that gap. And you can see, I mean, actually looking at the lead gap now, it looks like Vac's got it back up to 1.6 seconds. I mean, they'll probably be towards the end of the straight now, if not at the end of it. So that maybe didn't quite work. That makes me think that Liam Rance might be running higher downforce as well. I think we're going to see a replay, though, Lewis, of what happened there in that big accident we saw half a lap ago.
Yeah, we'll see exactly what happened as we're riding the ball in Volo. So it was a little bit of an issue there, which brought the car backwards and just into the side of Bavolo. It's a shame.
Absolutely. I mean, there's not much you can do in that situation. Bavolo almost got through it as well, and I'm sure his heart would have skipped a beat there, and then when he actually got collected, his soul would have just been crushed. But he made it through, and we do apologise, because I'm sure it's our fault. As you see a lock up there, I think that's a damaged car, actually, Wirth coming back to pits. Oh, and Filetto gets caught out just as he was coming towards the end of the lap. He reverses across the track as well, a little bit close, and someone has got collected in that. So that's a bit of a mess there happening right at the end of the lap.
And just launching it off of the barrier as well. Otero also into the pit lane after those issues. Kind of the typical thing. The pit lane entry here is really, really narrow. I think he wanted to get down pit lane entry before, but then had a bit of an issue. Sebastian Ray did get to the pit lane entry, so he didn't add himself to the retirement list. If there is a circuit, though, if you get the car repaired back to normal, it's not a bad circuit to do laps on. I do remember doing laps of like the Nürburgring Grand Prix and the Indianapolis road course and stuff. When you're in a race, you get involved in an instant, and then you're just by yourself, and it's like, right, okay, I'm in for a boring one now because the circuits aren't. I don't think Nürburgring Grand Prix is particularly interesting to drive. Whereas here, I'll drive this by myself for half hour.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a fun track to test out different cars as well and see where their performance lies because you've got such a mixture of different things. Ooh. By the way, yeah, we saw a bit of a glitch there, but Ben Scullion, who just seems to have jumped into third place, he is actually the quickest man on track right now. A 6:20 on the last lap was the fastest lap of the race. To be honest, he's only 4.2 off the lead. So if that is pure pace and not just one good lap from Ben Scullion, we could see him on the back of Liam Rance fairly soon. The leaders, by the way, both in the 6:21s, a 6:21.2 last time for Vac, and Liam Rance, of course, a 6:21.8. Obviously, worth bearing in mind, it's a very long lap, Lewis. We've only done 2 or 3 laps so far, so the lap times, you can't really look too much into that. But clearly, Liam Scullion has got things running well, and there is still 29 minutes left in this race. Also worth mentioning, of course, pit stops. Now, at the Nordschleife, strategies may be a little bit more similar between the different drivers because you're obviously relying on a certain amount of fuel. But could we see maybe one of the drivers that sees traffic try and do an undercut? Or with the Nordschleife, do you think there's basically going to be one perfect spot to pit and everyone's going to take it? What do you expect?
I kind of think there's going to have to be one perfect spot. Obviously, you don't get too many laps around here. Just to clarify as well, the fuel tank, we kind of brought it up a little bit earlier. Typically, if you go and buy this car and give it a go around yourself and have an awful lot of fun, because it is a good fun car when you're throwing it around circuits, especially like the Nordschleife, or to be, for me, the new Brands Hatch GP. That would be good fun in a car like this. That's absolutely certain. The Goodness Saker as well. I kind of get the vibe. 100 litres when you do that. Heavy car. In this, we have a smaller tank, it's just 45 litres. Obviously, to encourage that pit stop, you can't fuel save enough to get that one to the checkered flag. I would say the earliest possible time that you can make it to the checkered flag pit, because retirements and stuff, other cars coming into the pit lane, that pit lane could get quite busy, and it is very small. They do box on either side as well of the main road, and there is contact on in the pit lane.
Yeah, and that is definitely a tricky part of the race for these guys at the front as well. They're going to have to be careful. Looks like Vac, by the way, has pulled out a little bit of a lead now. 3.2 seconds over Rance, and Scullion, as we said, might happen, is beginning to put the pressure onto Liam. So it'll be interesting to see if Scullion decides to make a pit stop in the next lap. One thing as well about these cars, and we were talking earlier about the Q2 sound improvements that are coming to rFactor 2. We were out at Silverstone when some of these cars were actually testing. There was an LMP3 Ligier testing at Silverstone. The sound is absolutely phenomenal, so I cannot wait to hear what these cars sound like after the update. I mean, the V8 roar it honestly causes the ground to shake. It's absolutely phenomenal. So that's another thing that really intrigues me about this car, and definitely one that's going to be fun to hot lap with your speakers turned up.
Such a deep rumble that comes. I mean, you can kind of hear it when it goes through. Even now, even on the current sound system, you can kind of hear that deep rumble. It's almost like we're riding on board with like a Corvette GTE. Here comes the move from Julien Lemoyne to get inside the 15th place, but didn't fancy it on Carlet. Oh, a little bit wide there, losing the rear end. Lemoyne not able to get past.
Both of them did, I think. I mean, they both had different incidents, but this had a similar kind of wobble. One went wide, one went, for oversteer, and they just about got away with it. So clearly these drivers are pushing hard. They are right on the limit of this thing.
Well, Lemoyne not able to part. Like I say, I think you're absolutely right. Just trying to maybe keep an eye too much on the car ahead. Did get a word in our ear that Cook, who's in 24th position, is getting a drive-through penalty for causing an issue on lap 1. Thankfully, a drive-through penalty around here doesn't cost you too much time. It's not like it's the Spa Endurance pit lane, as there was a bit of a switch.
Was that Rance? Rance and Zitiello seem to have dropped. The gap's got higher, so I'm not quite sure what happened.
Scullion dropped backwards. He's dropped back into 5th place behind Zitiello and Bala. Whether that's courtesy of some of the yellow flags that we've seen. Well, either way, going around the outside, that is Liam, Rance and Zitiello. There's damage on Rance's car. Yeah. 100% damage on Rance's car. So that's what's happened. And that, I'm going to assume, was Scullion on the right-hand side. The two of them have come together.
Definitely. I mean, we were just saying that Scullion's going to be on the back of Rance. I'm sure he would have been eager to make the move as soon as possible. And maybe it's ended up in contact. I'm sure we'll try and get a replay of that for you. Meanwhile, the man to benefit, Fabian Bala, has taken 2nd place. As you can see, the crabbing going on for Liam Rance. He's going to be straight into the pits. Thankfully, it's happened late in the lap, Lewis, so these guys might have a chance of surviving if they can get it fixed. Rance is going to lose it on the grass. It's going to be a dramatic incident. That is going to cause more damage, so that is probably going to be race over, at least for the top positions for Liam Rance. That's a shame.
I have seen some predictable things in sim racing in my time, i.e. 3, 4 wide not working. That I would put on the list as most predictable thing. You're going flat out. You're keeping up, bearing in mind that's doing about 290 kilometers an hour with a car that's crabbing with clear suspension issues. The moment that you even breathe on the brake pedal or lift off, you know what it's like. We've both had races and stuff. Oh no! Zitiello backwards into Fabian Bala. The two of them will be out of any decent proceedings as well. Liam Rance and Scullion both out of the race. Tortella will jump up into 2nd position then.
This is a race of attrition, as we thought it might be. I mean, Vac is just laughing. Tomasz Vac at the front. He's got a big lead now. Everyone is crumbling behind him. Tortella, as you say, up to 2nd. Bala's going to have huge damage in 3rd. Perdan, who had an incident earlier, is still sitting in 4th position. But Zitiello DNF, Liam Rance DNF. So, I mean, the attrition rate, Lewis, is very high indeed. So the drivers that are just keeping a cool head, holding it together, are going to end up in the top positions here.
Well, that is the green hell for you. I mean, obviously, a couple of those incidents coming through, a couple of them coming from driving mistakes, a couple of them coming from outside issues as well. It is one of those things, but either way, Fabian Bala also out of the race. So Zitiello joins the retirement list along with Liam Rance, along with Fabian Bala. Carl Georg Stapp will move up inside the top 10 then, with a 9th place at the moment, just by himself. Yeah,
and I was going to say, Jonathan Fraser has been sneaking up the order, and he's now up into 5th position. He's obviously quite a long way back, maybe doesn't have quite the pace of the leaders, but I mean, it shows you if you can just keep a cool head and stay out of trouble. He has raised up the leaderboard. He's now up to P4 now. So, I mean, if anything happens to the top 3, he could be looking at taking home a trophy from what wasn't a very, it wasn't right at the top at the start of the race. He wasn't at the front of the grid. So, a great job. There is Jonathan Fraser in that lovely looking livery as well. And yeah, he's looking good now. I've got a little bit of a gap behind him as well. Seems like things are beginning to settle down. Now that people are having their incidents, the field is spreading out a little bit. Drivers have a little bit more room to really push, maximise their racing lines and kind of settle into a rhythm. But before you know it, Lewis, they're going to be into the pits, and we're going to see some new tyres probably on the cars.
Of course, we are missing our Race of the Season 1 champion in Turkka Hakkinen. We will see Turkka Hakkinen, though, race in... I'm 99% sure that he is in the rFactor 2 Formula Challenge season, which will start in a couple of weeks' time. Of course, tomorrow Formula Pro starts. We'll talk more about that a bit later on as Staps gets down the inside, properly sent, and he just makes contact with Flynn. That was a silly little mistake.
It was. You know what? You almost made it work. They're going to make contact again in the rejoin. That was... I don't know if he meant to do that, to be honest, because he locked up the car. You could see he was trying to stay to the inside. Almost turned it into a great move. Unfortunately, it was anything but in the end, and it's cost the... I didn't quite catch who it was.
Flynn.
I think it was Flynn. So poor, unfortunate Flynn getting wiped out in that one. But, you know, the cars live to fight another day. Not too much damage, hopefully, and they're still looking like picking up a top 10 result.
Lemoyne did come through, despite the rejoin there from Stapp. I'd say Stapp was just a little bit too far. Obviously, once you've come through Schwedenkreuz, eyed up and moved down the inside, got too far over to the right-hand side, and then as you're onto the grass just a little bit, you know what it's like. Well, especially, I've said this before, it's not, if you have just two wheels completely on the grass and two wheels completely on tarmac, what typically happens is you go in a straight line. When you've got it, well, yeah, sometimes, when you've got like the half the tyre, half that second tyre on the grass, half that tyre on the tarmac, there's a grip differential on that tyre, and it's just like, nope, nope, and that's when you go for a spin. We see it all the time at places like Road Atlanta when you come through turn 6 and turn 7 as these two right-handers. If you run too far wide, you can just touch the grass ever so slightly, and it's just an instant spin.
Absolutely, yeah. One tyre going at a different speed to the rest is a recipe for disaster. We are going to see a replay now of that incident. You can see he's locked up, touches the grass, and that's it. And as you say, Flynn getting caught up there, nothing he could do about it. And the rejoin was a little bit messy as well, but at least they're still running. You can see there Carl's car looking okay, actually, but he's still in the top 10. But saying that, there aren't that many drivers left in this race. There's been such a high attrition rate, which we maybe shouldn't be too surprised at, given the nature of the race. But everyone obviously pushing very hard, and it's still looking absolutely fantastic for Vac. Oh, that's not his first incident of today either.
No, certainly not. So more issues for the Volante driver, who's been in the wars a little bit, as it's Tortella. Is that it's not Fraser directly behind us, someone a lap down, as Tortella's had issues with himself. Thomas Vac is going to win this race by minutes if everyone keeps throwing it down the road like this.
I mean, what were we saying about Jonathan Fraser keeping it clean? He's now in a podium spot, and he's going to be looking at a trophy. He does have Maimo catching him in 4th position, though, so only 3 seconds there. It was 5 seconds, so there's still a bit of pressure on. But it just shows you if you can just keep it together. Don't know what happened to Tortella. Maybe he was caught up with a back marker. Maybe he made a mistake all by himself. We aren't sure, but he was looking comfortable in second. I mean, to be fair, still is looking comfortable in second, but definitely looking like he's got a little bit of damage there. So it'll be interesting to see if he can hang on. We go on board now. Can we see? So what you'll often see with damage, the steering wheel is not straight, so he's having to turn the car. Another spinner. It wasn't our leader, so it's obviously a back marker, and Tortella is going to nurse that car back to the pits, hopefully get it sorted.
Sebastian Ray's been disqualified. Not sure as to where that one came from, but either way, we'll take a look at the replay. This is what happened to Donat Predanto. Obviously, the lack of rear wing is what sent him around and just ahead of a couple of those coming through. They've got to be careful and don't reverse when there's a car coming round. Donat Predan, you've been in racing a bit too long. That was a silly mistake. It
was, yeah. In that situation, Lewis, as you know, you need to keep your foot on the brake. And obviously, if you're on that one side of the circuit, you've got to drive forward a little bit, leave a bit more room, but you cannot reverse when someone's coming. Hard to see, of course, as well. So you've got to bear that in mind. These cars, the visibility is not great, but yeah, he's a bit more experienced than that, should know a bit better. The rear wing had already gone, so the incident was inevitable in some ways. But yeah, we move on, and Tomasz Vac is looking like, will he make a pit stop in this lap, I wonder?
I think he might do. Of course, we're over halfway through the race. The thing is, though, he might think, do you know what? If I pit now, I might drop behind. He has pitted anyway, but he might drop behind like Taylor, Fraser. I don't think he will because it's a short pit lane and they're not taking in much fuel.
Oh, he's missed his box.
Not very busy.
Has he missed his box?
No, I think it was all right. He did lock up going into it, though, so it's very easy to do so, but I don't think he actually missed it. As you can see, the pit lane timer ticking up, so I think it is all right. Just 12 seconds. That's all the fuel that's required, so he'll rejoin in the race lead, looking to lead every single lap here at the Nordschleife.
Yeah, and I think he's going to do it. I mean, he can afford now to take it slow, not make any mistakes, avoid all the big curbs, And yeah, I think he should be home and dry. I mean, we've seen crazier things have happened in motorsport, but I think a betting person would put their money on Tomasz Vák at the moment. Tortella probably only now reaching the start-finish straight, and we should see a whole host of pit stops coming up here. Looks like Fraser's closed a bit of the gap as well, but of course they have, because our leader just pitted.
Yeah,
and you can see there now, yeah, the rest of the field I think we will see follow suit. This is where the pit lane can get dicey as well, Lewis. As you said earlier, it's very small, very short, very narrow, and contact is on.
Well, you can see Tortella and Fraser are in the pit lane. Maimo also comes to the pit lane. I'm pretty sure that they'll all pit. They'll all follow in one at a time. Kay also to the pit lane. So I know it's only 4 cars. You kind of think, well, that's not too many. 4 cars in that pit lane is tight. Tortella going for a much longer stop. Remember, it was 12 seconds of fuel that Tomasz Vák took. Tortella taking 20 seconds. 25 seconds taking away. This has got to be tyres.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, it looks like Tortella is taking, and also maybe damage, of course, because we saw him with the steering bent. It's probably going to be damage.
Of course. Maimo jumping straight up then into second spot.
31.5 seconds for Tortella. We saw a short pit stop as well from Maimo, and he's already out into second. So this has really changed up the order. Fraser, obviously carrying some issues as well, has dropped down to 5th position. And there's Prodan. He's just made it back to the pit lane as well. But look at the lead now that Tomasz Vák's got. It's 66 seconds ahead of Maimo. And there is Shannon Flynn as well coming in, just making it into the pit. So yeah, a whole host of drivers coming in. And that has changed the order a little bit, Lewis. I wonder if everyone will have taken tyres. I mean, that pit stop seemed too short to me for it to be tyres.
I don't think anyone else has so far. Obviously, when they're going for 12 seconds, that is absolutely just splash and dash weather. We're not in the likes of certain open wheel championships where it can just be like done. Off you go, and obviously no refueling. I think Gerg Stapp is taking tyres as well, because that pit lane timer is also ticking up. Realistically, you shouldn't need tyres in a 45-minute race around here. Whilst the fuel tank, the reason why they burn through so much fuel, they've only got 45 litres in the tank. Donat Prodan obviously going to be sat there for quite a while with damage repairs.
It's worth mentioning, I mean, Nico Maimo up in 2nd position, only just made it into the top split, which is the race we're seeing now. He must be so surprised. If you'd have told him at the start of the race he'd be sitting in P2 after the pit stops with 16 minutes to go, I think he wouldn't have believed you. So he's doing an amazing job up in 2nd place. Be interesting to see if he can hang on to that. But it does just show you that, you know, if you keep your head cool, you can make your way up through the grid. There's Tortella. Is it still damaged, do you think, or do you think he's fully repaired?
Would only really tell if we're on board. I kind of think that he wouldn't have been able to repair too much. Of course, realistically, it would be like a bent toe link or something in that kind of vein. There'd be issues. Looked like it was more so to do with the rear of the car as well, rather than the front. It was kind of being pulled to one side rather than being pushed, which obviously, if you're front where the steering is, I'm not 100% sure myself. It's maybe it was front damage, because the thing is front damage. I've always kind of said, if I've got damage on my suspension on the front, it's drivable. If I've got damage on my suspension on the rear, we're out.
You're getting more damage.
We're especially around here, you know, with the undulation stuff. If it's a completely flat circuit, it wouldn't be too much of an issue. But around here, not so much. A 3-way fight for 3rd.
This is good. This is where the action is at. You've got Tim Kay there just in front. We're on board with Jonathan Fraser in 4th, looking, of course, to regain the podium spot that he held on to earlier. His pit stop was a little bit long, so I'm not quite sure what the differences are there, whether he had a bit of damage, whether it was something else. He goes for the move. Kay's given him lots of room, so Tim Kay seems to be struggling a little bit. But yeah, I mean, fair play. Jonathan Fraser down the inside. Kay gave him lots of room. Very polite from those two, and he's back in a trophy position.
I think that might have just been sort of like an understanding of confidence and stuff with how to fight. I've only ever, you know how long I've been in sim racing. I've been in sim racing about 8.5, 9 years. It's 9 years in July, on July the 2nd.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I do remember my first race was at Silverstone. I overtook Jack Nicholls around the outside of Stowe. I'm very proud of it. Obviously, yeah, being raced for that long, I've only ever raced around the Nordschleife once, like an actual event. We did do 4 races on there, but 3 of them were in touring cars. One of them, though, was in GT3s. I think I was teamed up with one of your old teammates. I don't know if you ever teamed up with Jack Nicholls, of course, back in your precision
I remember,
days. But yeah, Jack Nicholls, Jack Keithley. I cost them a win. A classic Lewis McGlade moment. I spun because I'm not quite as good as himself and Richard Schaefer, who was my teammate. But had to spend the entire final part of the race defending for about 4 laps from Florian Haase. And around here, thankfully, I was in a Merc and he was in an Audi, so I had the straight line speed advantage. Because around all this, sat on my rear end, basically Morse code all the time. Even if a car is sat there in your mirrors, it's pressure, and so much of it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not easy at all, and you know, sometimes these guys make it look easy. I'd say today they're not necessarily making it look easy. You know, there's been a lot of incidents, but yeah, it's difficult when you've got a car all over the back of you, especially when you're talking about the names you've mentioned there today. I mean, Jack Keithley, saying at the start, used to be a teammate of mine at Precision. He is known across the sim racing community as one of the masters of the Nordschleife specifically. And it's interesting because I've been sim racing, I think, a little bit longer than you, maybe about 10 years, or since I started.
More, yeah.
And I have never in my life done an actual online race at the Nordschleife. I mean, I've done 1,000 laps.
Really?
I know it off by heart, but I don't think I've ever fully raced around here, which is, yeah, a bit...
Looks like we need to team up, mate.
Yeah, maybe I'll get entered in races that, oh wait, no, it's going to be a different combination, of course.
I can tell you for sure, I am terrified of racing the Nordschleife because it is a hard
We should do it together.
Circuit.
We should get in the same car, do an endurance race around here, and then we can forgive each other when we inevitably stuff it in the wall.
When we bin it, because it's going to happen. Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I'm the same. I've done loads of that. Every time like a kind of a new car comes out that I'm interested in, that I want to take around, I probably wouldn't take the touring cars around when it comes out with Brands Hatch and Donington Park. Like, I'm going to do a lot of laps of those two, thank you very much. But the Nordschleife, you know, you get a new car. When you know, the Dallara P2s, anytime the new GT3 or something comes out, it's like, right, I know where I'm going. I know where I'm taking this. I've got to go around the Nordschleife. I've got to give it a go.
100%. The only downside to the Nordschleife being the first track you try out a new car on is the loading time, because it's such a big track. You're really eager to get out there. But once you're there, it is a great place. It's a perfect test bed, really, for any kind of new car, because, as you say, as we see it, that's our race leader as well, Thomas Vack. I mean, fair play. If I were him, I'd be backing it off a little bit, but he wants to put on a show, and he's definitely doing that. So we very much appreciate it here in the commentary box, which is why we're here and not driving the cars. But yeah, I mean, it's a great place to test cars because you've got the speed down the straights, and obviously it tests the straight line performance. There's lots of very high speed sections, and then you've got a huge mixture of high speed corners and low speed corners. I mean, you can't really be surprised because there are so many corners that you've got a little bit of everything at the Nordschleife. But it's the undulation and the changes in elevation, the cambers, that really set this track apart from others, I believe, and make it such an exciting place to go. Look at that view as well.
I know, absolutely stunning on the Duttinger. You could see there, as we were looking at Nico Mimo, backwards from him, you could see Fraser, you could see Kay, you could even see Tortello if you were looking that far back. Not too far behind, and Mimo just having a bit of an issue there on the Duttinger. There is one thing, so obviously we had a fuel stop, some drivers taking more fuel than others. Thomas Vack has control here. I think he crossed the line with enough time to do 3 laps. Now, there's a lot of time that he can back up into. He could make this a 2 more laps in this race, or he could make it 3. That is actually, genuinely, that is his choice.
He's got control over it. He could also afford, if he made any mistakes with fueling, he's probably got enough of a lead where he could easily do a splash and dash. So in terms of fuel, he is not going to have a problem. He might try and mess with the other competitors and maybe stretch it a little bit longer, but of course for him, the less laps he completes, the easier it's going to be to win the race. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he does back off towards the end. I think it's, as a driver in that situation, you are aware of things like that. You know, you cross the line, you know how long the lap's going to be for you. I mean, Tomasz Vack on his last lap was 6:44, but when he's not pitting, it's usually the low 6:20s, you know, 6:21, 6:22. So he knows how long roughly he's got to go in this race, so he can make that decision. But I don't know, for me as a driver, I've never taken the decision to really back off just to get the race to end early. I mean, I haven't led maybe as many races as Tomasz Vack might have, but yeah, I always take the safe option and just go for it.
Tomasz Vack's a good driver. I think you've led a few more in your time. I know how many races you've led and won. Not obviously to the exact number, but I know it's certainly a lot more than myself. As Mimo continues in that second position, a lot of retirements. Obviously, I think it's retirements all the way back down to about 14th position, which, considering there's 27 rounds, that's 13 retirements in the opening 35 minutes of this race. Sebastian Ray, Ralph IM, then Carl Newis, Filetto, Anello, Verth, Van Gashoven, Scullion, Rance, Zitiello, Fabian Barla, John Cook as well, after receiving a drive-through penalty, and Donat Pradan, the latest driver to add his name to the retirement list. And I think there is a couple of, well, there's not any more a lap down, because I think when we were riding on board with Mimo, I think the car that was going a lap down there, no rear wing on.
We know how this is going to end.
Is he going to back it down slow enough, though? Is he going to back it down slow enough? That's the thing. It was Cook, by the way, who was going a lap down.
he got through the left-hander safely, which is
Yes.
the trickiest part, as you know, with the lack of downforce. So maybe, and he's very close to the pit lane, so he should be okay.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, just looking as well, just to give you an idea of lap times and stuff. I mean, Thomas Vac, he wasn't in a league of his own per se at the start, because there were a few others that were just as quick. However, now looking at it, because a lot of the guys that have taken it a little bit easier and kind of worked their way up through the attrition, such as Maimo, Fraser in third, Tim Kay in fourth, you know, Vac is around about 14 seconds a lap quicker on his best lap. So there's a little bit of a gap there. However, the driver in fifth position, Lorenzo Tortella, does have that extra little bit of pace. His best lap is 6:23. So he's only 7 seconds behind the battle for second, third and fourth. If he can keep up that pace that he did earlier, we could definitely see a change of positions. We could see Tortella regain the podium. However, as you said earlier, he could still be struggling with a little bit of damage. So keep an eye on the gap between fourth and fifth is all I'll say. It definitely depends on a number of different factors, but it's one thing to keep an eye on.
Well, I think Eric Nunez, who we are looking at here, obviously in sixth spot, there you can see just ahead of him. That is Tortella is there rolling around again, going through the Lauda curve up towards Bergwerk. That gap is really coming down. So Nunez knocking at the door within a second as they start this enormous climb back up the hill. Slipstream of his, and not a great exit as well from Tortella.
Yeah, and to be honest, the fact that Nunez is closing in, I mean, Nunez has similar pace to the guys in second, third and fourth, so that probably breaks that theory. Tortella probably is then therefore struggling with damage. We've got a great helicopter shot here of Eric Nunez, not for long, as he heads back down the straight. Now, this, as you say, this is the section that's so important to have a good exit onto, because you're just going to gain it all the way up here. And Nunez just about is going to be picking up the slipstream. You maybe don't want the slipstream through this left-hander, but you can see Eric just takes a little bit of a lift, backs off, and it looked like Lorenzo Tortella was struggling there to get that thing through safely. And yeah, you can see he's backing off in the corner, so he's definitely struggling a little bit.
And that was the Spiegel curve, which is, to be honest, pretty flat. And yeah, he's just opened the door to be like, right, I'd actually quite like to finish this race in a decent position. You go through. Eric Nunez taking over then fifth spot. Pretty easy one. You're absolutely right. Tortella was definitely struggling running through Moot Curve. It's called Bravery Corner, and you could see how much he was backing off, clearly not having faith in the machine that he's got. If there is suspension damage, I said it before, if it's on the rear, I would not be taking any corner with the same level of gusto and speed that I would if the car was racing. And also, you're in a race, your heart's pounding. Around here, and I'm not joking, your difference between a time in practice and a time in the race can be different. If you're not a Nordschleife specialist, can be different to the tune of genuinely around like 10 seconds.
Absolutely.
That is perfectly understandable that that's the case.
I mean, the level of competition in this field is insanely high, and of course we've seen quite a lot of mistakes here today, and the drivers that are taking it easy, you know, making their way through the field. I mean, Tortella is still going to get a good result despite the damage if he can keep it together. But I mean, the level these guys are at is phenomenal. To be doing, you know, 620, 621s, what the drivers at the top pace are doing. I mean, you stick the AI on what, you know, the highest difficulty they can be, and they're probably not even that quick, you know, 635s and stuff like that. So I mean, the pace is really high. The drivers have to be absolutely on it from the get-go. So even those in third and fourth, who are maybe 10 seconds a lap off the pace, are still going at an incredible rate of knots. And experience makes a big difference around here as well, Lewis. If you've finished many races at Nordschleife before, you'll know how to manage that a little bit.
Indeed, we will. Thomas Vac has started the final lap of the race. He did cross the line with 6 minutes and 9 seconds to go, so unless he wants to set the fastest lap of the race by not far off about 15 seconds, I'm pretty sure we're on the last lap of the race. A little bit of a lock-up there from Otero, rolling around up towards the Brunswick corner, YouTube corner. Tortella still continuing on. Will he drop back in? Surely not. Unless he makes a mistake, Lemoyne is way, way too far back to really worry and pester anything. Otero, though, is closing in. Despite a couple of those issues, we were focusing on him. He is closing in on 8th spot.
Yeah, and he has been quicker throughout the race as well than Goncalves ahead of him. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on, that battle for 8th then. We're still looking at Tortella, who's not actually dropped that far behind Eric Nunez, but as you say, I don't think he's going to be able to get that move done unless Nunez slows down a bit more. Is Nunez slow on the right-hand side there with a bit of damage? Maybe it's just perception because of the depth and the length of that straight. But he definitely doesn't look too far away from Eric Nunez. I wonder if Eric's had a little bit of an issue there. Definitely worth keeping an eye on. He looks okay pace there, though. Yeah,
it looks like it's going fair enough in a straight line. I think it was also the angle, like pulling over to the right-hand side looked a bit odd. Typically, you do leave the car on the left. The thing is it's such a long straight. It kind of says when you're by yourself, when you're racing, you kind of just do everything naturally, right? You don't have time to think about it. You just do. When you're by yourself, every time you come down into Tiergarten, you have the run all the way from Galgenkopf to think about when to get on the brakes, and that is a long time to think. Hang on, was it Was it as I passed the 200? Was it as I passed the 150? I actually can't remember, because you drive, a lot of us drive on feel and stuff, and then watching, and you kind of see out of the corner, you're right, oh, that was the 150, right, I need to brake now. Oh, a little bit wide there from Tortella.
He's going to have to keep the steering wheel straight to save it, and he has done. Yeah, well done. That's so hard to hold, as you know, when that happens. But yeah,
because you go off for like basically 2 corners then.
The interesting thing with Duttinger Holt as well, the end of that straight, it's obviously a huge straight, as you say. You've got so much time to think about where to brake. But for me personally, it's one of those sections where I never really I don't have a particular spot that I always pick to hit the brakes.
Yeah,
I kind of go by feel, because you've got a lot of the braking zone is essentially a multiple corners. We see Louis Otero back in the pits for possibly a last lap splash and dash there, so he might well drop out of the top 10. Got a little bit of time, so it might still be possible. 6.1, that's definitely a splash and dash. But yeah, as I was saying, because you can see visually that the braking zone is almost a bunch of corners before you get to the tighter one, I actually find that that's one of the braking zones you can get away with feel a little bit more, because it's hard to pick out a spot at that kind of speed, and there's not that many references to go off. So for me, it's kind of like, okay, I'm reaching the first of the curves now. It's probably good to start slowing down a little bit. Of course, it's different if you're in an esports situation where you need to find every single half a tenth, and especially if you're going for the fastest lap of the race or something like that, you're so close to the end of the lap that you do not want to ruin it right near the end. So it's a tricky balance.
One of the many rule number ones. I swear that there is about 50 of them, as Sobchak has had a bit of an issue as well. I think the Hungarian driver's down in 13th, 14th position.
Bit of a shame, because that's the only time we've seen them in the whole broadcast.
Exactly.
Making a mistake.
That is a bit rough. Broadcast director only picking up on the issues of other drivers.
Maybe it's a compliment, actually.
Fair enough. Yeah. At least he gets them on the broadcast, but no rear wing as they come towards her act.
Good for the sponsors.
That was always going to happen again. Clearly, there's a lot of suspension damage as well. Not too great.
Yeah, Bavolo also making a late pit stop, so presumably again a little bit short on fuel. It was interesting. We talked earlier about whether the leader might slow down a little bit to stop doing the extra lap, and Vax played it very, very well, because his last lap was a 6:29, which is about 8 seconds off the pace he did do at the start of the race. Of course, a lot of that will be down to backing off a little bit, but it's the perfect pace to be doing in order to finish the race not far after the 45 minutes is up. So I think he's played a blinder here.
Well, it was Alain Prost who said about winning by... obviously, that was more towards the gap to the car behind, win by the smallest margin. But in that sense, this is not for a world championship, but still it would be in that vein of, if you don't have to go that extra lap, don't go that extra lap, because all you're doing is you'd be introducing risk, the chance of coming across a back marker, the chance of going off yourself, the chance of having a technical issue, your internet disconnecting, or your PC having a moment, or your wheel unplugging itself. So many things can go wrong, and we don't really realise when you're in a race, and it is the same as in motorsport, obviously for different issues, but when you're in a race, you are on a knife's edge where basically it's like, this is going perfectly fine, but if someone breathes wrong and a USB, you hear that USB disconnected, that's it, your race is done.
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many variables, as you said, that could go wrong. It doesn't look like Tomasz Vac's backing off, let's put it that way. I mean, it sounds slow when I say he's 8 seconds off his own pace. He's still 5 seconds quicker than the fastest lap of the next 3 cars behind him. So it's still incredible pace. He needs to be careful here, though, because you've got a back marker with no rear wing. This is one of the variables we talked about, but he seems to have made it through safely. Great job by the back marker to stay out of the way, and it's going to be a nice, steady last sector for Tomasz Vac, who's on his way to win the second ever Race of the Season event here at the Nordschleife. And what a great one to win as well, because of how difficult the Nordschleife is in this car as well. I mean, this is truly a test of driving skill, and he has mastered it from start to finish in every department.
You're taking away from Turka Hakkinen?
I am not, no.
No, I'm taking that away.
Would you take a win at the Nordschleife or a win at Daytona? I mean, I would take a win at the Nordschleife.
I'd take a win at the Nordschleife, yeah. Sorry, Turka. If you are watching, I would absolutely take a win at the Nordschleife over Daytona Beach. It was a great race, of course, and we did race the season 1. Julian Lemoyne had a bit of an issue and no rear wing. That would have been lost down at Mutkurva. But as they run through the final corner, Tomasz Vac has been out front all afternoon. It was through a little bit of help from issues behind as well, but by 80 seconds, a minute 20, final corner ticked off, and Tomasz Vac will win Race of the Season 2 here at the Nordschleife in the Ligier JSP 320. That will be a pretty sweet victory. He's had to go out there and just basically drive one of the greatest racetracks on the planet. I'd still say it's second best racetrack on the planet, but still one of the very best, as Lemoyne continues to have problems.
Yeah, that's not going to stop. He's going to try desperately, I think, think, to hold on to a top 10, but it's not going to be easy. It's mad, though, isn't it? Because at the Nordschleife, you see the gap, and you think, okay, that's, it's a big gap. If that was any other circuit, Lewis, you're looking at almost a lap. If we were talking about something like Daytona, I mean, Daytona's also a fairly long lap, but maybe a Brands Hatch GP or Donington, you're looking, I mean, you're essentially saying he's leading by a lap, which is, I mean, that is a phenomenal achievement. Of course, as you say, it's down to attrition, and then we have seen much higher attrition here than we saw last time out, but a really, really impressive job nevertheless. You have to give a huge amount of credit, though, to the second place man, Nico Maimo, who's coming across the line. I mean, he started so far back on this grid, we didn't even expect to see him very much in this broadcast, let alone in the top 10, and here he finds himself in second, take nothing away, fully deserves it, has been running a great pace, very steady, worked his way up, didn't seem to put a foot wrong, and is going to be picking up a second place trophy at the Nordschleife. I mean, a fantastic effort.
That is very impressive, of course. Just basically, rather than racing with everyone, rather than showing incredible pace, it was just keeping clean, reaching the checkered flag and avoiding problems. A lot of drivers have overstepped themselves, and you can even see kind of across the line. It just felt kind of calm, just like, yes, there we go, easy peasy. Jonathan Fraser comes across the line as well to finish in the final spot on the podium, with Tim Kay coming around behind as well. Nunez as well will finish in 5th spot, but Tomasz Vak victorious here, and I think just so. It was dominant from start to finish, was well in control, had a little bit of pressure over those first couple of laps, but was out front and looked pretty comfortable.
Absolutely. I mean, as you say, the first few laps, things were a little bit tight, and we saw a few drivers looking good. Scullion was looking very, very good early on. Liam Rance obviously making a move, and at that point, we kind of thought it could be anyone's race, seeing how this was going. But the way it transpired, Vak was just dominant, he was controlled, and he absolutely smashed out the park. And the second half of that race really was just him managing the gap, which he did perfectly under pressure.
Yeah, obviously with the gap behind, kind of had to think a little bit about the fuel mileage. You kind of, it's so easy to take 1 or 2 litres less. Maybe he did back off a little bit to make sure that we didn't go for that extra bonus lap as well. That could play its a little part on why we saw those 6:29s. I can't remember what his last lap was. Last lap was a 28 as well. Considering we know he could do 21s around here. Tyres, yes, fair enough. It's not really the highest tyre wear circuit. I think it was probably a little bit of backing off just to make sure we didn't go for that extra lap, just to win, secure the victory, secure the trophy, and secure race of the season 2 champion.
Yeah, and we know, obviously we saw the trophies for the first round. I haven't actually seen the trophies for this round, but they were very nice the first time round, and you can expect something similar this time. So I hope you guys, if you're watching this broadcast back, and I'm sure Vak will love to watch this broadcast back because he's absolutely smashed it, you'll have a very nice trophy coming your way, and hopefully that won't be smashed.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. I mean, to be fair, the trophy from race of the season, the first one, was very impressive. Like I said, it's glass. It had like this bit inside of the car and stuff, which looked amazing. And then you pick it up and you think, oh my goodness, that is heavy. Like the thing is really, really heavy. But having a trophy for your sim racing achievements is great. We don't typically have many when it comes to podiums and stuff in sim racing, because you get your podium in your touring car league with your mates and stuff. You're never going to get a trophy for that. I always used to take, I still do, take photographs whenever I win a race of my car. You know me.
You've got history books, and photos.
So just 27 wins in sim racing in 9 years. It's not great. That's not a great record. But to win a trophy, you do put it up on your mantelpiece and think, I don't care if it was from a little league. That means something.
It's the same as real racing as well, Lewis. I mean, obviously at the very high levels you have prize money and you've got sponsorship and all these things, but for a club level racing and stuff like that, a trophy is what you win if you win the event. You don't win anything else. So it's just as meaningful winning in sim racing as it is in real racing. It's just a little bit more accessible for people to get into. So yeah, I mean, fantastic. I'm sure the drivers will really appreciate that as well, and it's great to see so many taking part in this new series.
Absolutely. Well, we'll take a look at the results from the race here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife in those LMP3s. Of course, we know Tomasz Vak has taken the victory, and dominantly so, about 80 seconds clear on the grid. Here are those results coming onto your screen. Tomasz Vak and then Nico Maimo taking that second position, with Jonathan Fraser behind to round out the podium. Tim Kay and Eric Nunez getting quite close towards the end of the race. Tortella having issues late on, dropping back behind Nunez with a couple of laps to go. Goncalves in 7th position with Otero, Flynn and Julien Lemoyne did manage to stay inside the top 10 despite those issues. So I think that'll be a fair effort. Bavolo and then Ligier in 13th position, as we'll see Sobchak. I think there was a retirement late on, that's why the numbers go a bit wonky there for 12th place. Then the retirements, adding a massive list. Of course, Ligier did retire. Donat Prodan retired. John Cook, Fabian Barla, Zitiello, Liam Rance, Scullion, Van Gashoven as well. Retirements, and further to add to the list, Stefan Wirth, Anello, Folletto, Newis, Ralph IM, and then Sebastian Ray with a DQ. Not 100% sure where that came from. I think might have been thrown over the side of the circuit at some point.
Yeah, and there was a lot of really fast drivers, big names in the DNF list, and that makes sense because we saw, the action was intense at the front and it turned into a lot of incidents. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. You have to be careful with Nordschleife. You've got to keep it clean if you want to get the good result.
Well, we are going to wrap up now. I think we've had a bit of a fun one. When we go racing next time for Race of the Season, of course, we've got to try one of those new tracks. It'll be Laguna Seca in the IndyCar, which is a lot of fun. That's a great combination. But there is also racing tomorrow. We've got the Formula Pro Championship, so don't forget to tune in for that. You have to deal with us two once again. But that is going to be fantastic. What is also going to be fantastic tomorrow is the content drop we're getting. Honestly, can't wait for it. 5 pieces of fantastic content. Going to be so much fun tomorrow to give that one a go. But race this season, number 2, over. Been a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun. Very different to the race we had last time out at Daytona, but I cannot wait for Laguna IndyCar. And of course, if you want some more action before then, tune in tomorrow because we have the opening round of Formula Pro and it is going to be sensational.
The second season of the rFactor 2 Formula Pro Championship. Bonnerhaus, the champion, taking 6 victories on the bounce last season. What could he do in 2022? Join us then, 7 p.m, live here on the Traxion YouTube channel. Until then, though, from myself, from John Monroe, it's bye-bye.